Sword of omens, give me sight beyond sight.
Yo, what up? Happy holidays, everyone. Goonskwad here, Mad Chiller, bringing you between two props. Tonight we're going to be discussing builds. Big builds, small builds, little builds, somewhere in between builds. We're going to have some amazing guests tonight discussing some firmware tips. We're going to talk some hardware tips, wiring, VTX stuff, whoops, micros, minis, macros, and talk about packs and power versus weights, things like that. So anyways, again, happy holidays, y'all. And we are going to start off with some shout outs. First of all, I want to shout out my brother Bill Brissett over at BQE Multi-Rotors. He's a fucking man and a dear friend of mine personally, and mad love, Merry Christmas. I want to shout out the UFDA crew for being fucking awesome. Also, Project Zen FPV, again, for being fucking awesome. FPV Builders, everybody's awesome, I'm going to mention, just put that out there. FPV Builders, Quad Mods, let's see, Quad Chat with Craig and Kat. They just had a dope episode running, I think it started an hour ago, with Zoe FPV. It was, I only could catch a little bit of it, but as I was getting ready for this. But I caught about a half hour, and it was dope. So good interview. Check that out. And let's see, we're going to shout out all of our fucking goons and goonies worldwide, especially Adzo UK over there in the UK representing. And, of course, amazing firmware companies like Emu Flight, Beta Flight, KISS. I want to shout out Old Gravy Leg and our families, man. Families number one. And without them, we couldn't be doing this shit. And of course, all you guys, all you supporters, mad love, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Quick note, we're going to take the holidays off and we're going to fire this up hard and heavy, after the new year in January. So, y'all, spend some time with your families and, enjoy those holidays. And with that, I'm going to bring you over to the goons. And our special guests tonight, we have Travis Braun from the Macro Quad Facebook group. And again, we have Kevin with Emu Flight. And they're going to be chiming in on some various specifics on some of the topics tonight. And of course, we have some of the squad. We've got Artemis Prime, Dumpling FPV, and Vice. And you never know who else might pop in, so we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
All right.
You never know what's going to happen over here on the Goons channel. Between two props, brother. What's up, everybody?
So, right.
How's it going?
So I see a little bit of the chat in... Right. So let's get started. Sorry. Of course, we're going to have a technical bug. I see a little bit of chat in the feed I want to fix, which is funny.
Yeah, right above Artemis's head.
I don't know why it's doing that. Restore chat. I couldn't get it to show up before, bro. What the fuck? Here. All right, I got it.
Murphy's always around, brother.
Motherfucker.
Cool. I'm just gonna shout out everybody in chat: Baldman, Bone FPV, Cement Kid, B Rad, The Bear, Aero Doi. Oh fuck, I forgot how to say his name.
Aerodio.
Aerodio.
I hope
yeah,
I'm
we had this conversation.
Right.
I think we had this conversation off stream earlier.
You got Stoner Trash FB
Stoner
in
Trash,
here, too.
of
You
course.
just subbed me. Thank you.
And Redbeard, of course.
Much love, Stoner. Much love to all the goons, all you goonies.
What's everybody up to tonight?
Chilling.
On that hump day. Anybody building?
Yeah.
I know I got a couple building here.
Travis is always building.
Yeah.
I'm building right now.
Taking this apart. And we're going to be building this.
What the hell?
So tell me what that is, because it's awesome looking.
This is a Mayday Quads Patriot frame. It's made for 10-inch props. I had it for a while. I took it apart and I built something stupid. And stupid
Now you're
failed.
getting back to
Now I'm doing this because this was like really solid. I crashed it plenty of times.
Yeah, I
Never
feel like I
let me down,
recognize those
so.
motors.
Yeah, these are the these are Avenger 2812 1115 kV.
Oh, word.
I missed the blue LEDs.
Yeah, like-
Are the LEDs gonna be on that one? Are you gonna have the blues on?
Nah,
that?
man, this is like gonna be something I destroy.
Oh, you're not gonna. You're not gonna do
Yeah,
it.
I'm gonna try to kill it this time.
Hey, B-Rad said the feed looks good and audio is locked.
Word.
So, good work, fellas.
Man,
This has been a
fucking
week-long
weeks.
endeavor, dude.
Weeks.
every day on it.
Dude, we've been working on this shit every fucking day. I think we took off part of the weekends because we were all losing our minds, but
Yeah, I had to go get a couple packs in just to clear the
yeah,
head.
it was raining here, man. I didn't get the fly. I haven't gotten the fly for over a week.
Yeah, me neither. I got 2 in yesterday. We had like the rain and clouds backed away for golden hour. I was just luckily I get to walk out of my back door and just do a little close packs.
I hate you.
You say that, but that fly spot gets a little old. It's great for testing though. I will say that.
Yeah, I feel that.
Put in my mouth last time. I was talking about how nice and warm it was in Florida. Yeah, it got cold.
Good.
40s and the 60s.
What?
cold.
60s? Fuck you.
Did you just say the 60s were cold?
Florida boy, cold.
Do we
Yeah,
have
I'm wearing a hoodie indoors.
It's 28 degrees in Memphis right now, bro.
I'm below 0 where I'm at.
That shit.
I'm below 0 Celsius. If that makes you feel any
Bro,
better.
we had snow squalls today. They were like saying it's gonna be whiteout conditions. I was
snow
like,
outside
fuck,
right now.
fuck that.
Oh, I got an alert for New York today.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
got a
I got
fucking.
two
I thought it was an Amber Alert. Yeah,
Yeah, me too. I was like, oh, somebody getting kidnapped again.
there was an Amber Alert yesterday.
Look out for that gold Kia or a white Toyota.
It was definitely gold.
It was
I remember
gold.
gold.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Yeah, so man, that's crazy. Fucking the weather is a bummer, and I'm traveling to Indiana tomorrow for the holidays, which most of my family doesn't know yet. Just my son and one of my sisters. So, anyways, and so in case they watch the feed, they're gonna find out. But I like to just surprise people. And fucking Indiana, if you've never been to Indiana, is flat. Is about as flat as it can fucking get, and the winds, man,
From
like out there,
to Memphis,
bro,
dude, so.
fucking just this is flat as fuck.
The flat sucks the life out of me, bro.
Bro, for real. You could be a flatland fucking champion if you lived out there, for sure. I mean, hey, you can race your ass off. Like, don't get
Yeah, for sure. No,
you can race your ass off. Plenty of
plenty
cornfield
of
and
fields.
shit. Yeah. Not the most interesting vertical challenges, though, to say the least. A couple windmill farms, though. That's
Now that's not bad.
yeah. There's a couple windmill farms out that way.
I wish they'd put some up over here, man.
Right?
They won't.
No.
They'll just steal them.
Windmill?
Oh, dude. You'll be seeing Cutlass Supremes riding around with windmills for rims, bro.
Oh shit!
They jacked my hubcaps the other day at the Children's Museum.
Get the fuck out of here! You serious?
That's
Yeah,
at the
dude.
Children's
What?
Museum.
On my caddy, man, and they left one because they couldn't get it off.
Bro, you sure you're not in Florida?
Bro, I'm in
shit,
I'm in
bro.
Memphis, Tennessee, eh? Get with it.
That's fucking hilarious.
Maine.
So shit. What else is going on? Is there any like I don't know. Anybody see anything cool? New tech? New gizmos? Anything fucking cool?
Oh.
FetTech ESC and the
FetTech.
FetTech flight controller
FetTech.
finally came out.
Yeah. Yeah, I know we were discussing that a little bit. How much do you remember? We were gonna have Austin Red 5 here, but unfortunately he's not able to join us. So yeah.
Well, from what I can tell and what Red was saying earlier is just it's a one wire connection, solder up your receiver and go.
I think
Uh,
he said you can
So-
do 24 ESCs off a single wire connection. That's pretty clutch. I mean, I don't know who the hell what is that? That's 6? I can't do
He
math.
said something about a 24
24 ESCs.
telemetry feeds from EC.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's bidirectional
So-
communication. It sends your signal and it returns back telemetry from all your ESCs, and you can drive 24 channels off that single connection, and which is like 6 4-in-1s, I think, right? I don't know what the hell.
I wonder,
I don't
like,
know what the fuck you would build with that.
How would you do that?
Yeah, I
Would
don't
you
either.
daisy chain them or something?
Say what?
what would you daisy chain them or something like that? Like,
Yeah, I believe it's
Yeah,
one
I think
wire.
that's what you do with
one
it.
wire, like, so you need a power, ground, and one wire going to each one, each 4-in-1, basically.
oh,
That's it.
that sounds like a cool idea.
Yeah, dude. I mean,
So,
imagine you can if we had that shit on macros, we could fucking build some crazy shit with one wire. Like, dude, like problems with hexes and octas goes away. You know what I mean?
Well, I've heard on that stock tune, man, it is super crispy.
Yeah, Austin's video looked dope.
It's like 5 different people have told me just how just locked in it feels right from the jump, which Kiss V2 did as well. But
Right.
I mean, I imagine it's they've done some tweaking on RC40.
Yeah, Austin's video. I could bring that up if we want. Do we want to do that now or do it later?
Oh, let's get into some videos later. Let's keep the conversation
I
rolling. We got Brian Kirby, aka Bone FPV, wants to know about Emu, and since we got the man himself here, just fill him in on that.
Do you want to do that? We want to do that now? All right, fuck it. I was gonna say we could do that in mini quads, but we don't have.
All right,
we don't have
well,
to here. Go for it, Kevin. Let me bring you up.
Is there anything specific you wants to hear about Emu?
I would just talk about that new firmware since that's kind of
Oh, that new version.
the new version that came out. What was added? Just
So, okay, let me go to those release notes.
I'm pinning Kevin. You're live, baby.
All right. In case anyone didn't know, there is release notes. It has some nice info. I wrote them up, so it's not super great. Let's see. So, as you can see in there, the biggest thing that we probably added was we fixed the IMUF filter for non-helio flight controllers. Now it's running essentially the same Kalman filter that the helio flight controllers are running, which I think is pretty big. It's a pretty cool kind of dynamic sort of filter. Yeah, it's pretty cool. If anyone likes whoop racing or they're into whoops, we've added a not fast enough racer mode, which it's angle mode, but only on roll. So your pitch axis doesn't have it, only your roll does. That's pretty cool. I've really liked that.
that's super sick.
Like, personally, since I've flown that, I can't fly angle mode. It just feels terrible, but I can fly this racer mode, and I love it for just ripping around the house. It's great.
I haven't tried it yet. I actually can't find my whoop, embarrassingly enough. I don't know where the fuck it's at.
So yeah, we've done that. Added a cinematic yacht thing.
I haven't had one since January 2018. I just never got into it. It's one of those things where it's just can't hold my attention. I want it to fly like a 5-inch, and they haven't until recently.
Emu's changing that, but
until recently.
I've done so with this latest release. I ended up talking to NFE, otherwise known as Not Fast Enough. And if you don't know who he is, he's one of the lead developers on the Silverware project. And right now he's working on his own project called Quicksilver, which he built from the ground up. And I've had a few chats with him and discussed some different things with him. And that's why we added the racer mode where it's only angle and roll. We added the cinematic yaw where it changes how your yaw acts a little bit based on how far you pitch your quad, and just a few other little things. And that combined with Emu Boost seems to really lock in quads, especially if you're flying angle, but as well on acro. And guys like Patrick from Project Mockingbird, there we go. He's really loving a lot of those recent changes for whoops.
Yeah, Mockingbird seems to really like it. I'm trying to get some of my other friends to try it, but they're still really they love the silverware stuff, and it's a hard sell, and I get it, but I'm still working on them. Hopefully we'll turn some of those guys around too.
Yeah.
Not that
once you bond with a firmware or something like that, or becomes so cut. It's like me and Kiss, man. It would be like, at least as of yet, I hadn't tried Emu yet. I just flashed it on my 7-inch. But like making that switch, I'm always disappointed with Betaflight when I get into it and spend 4 hours with it and still can't get it to fly the way I want it to, where it took me 20 minutes to
Get it on
takes me
Kiss.
two packs and I'm there on Kiss.
Well, that's how that's really how I felt on Betaflight this summer, man. I hate, and I'm not knocking Betaflight. Those devs do a lot of good work. They do a lot of hard work. But with my 10-inch, I was pulling my I've said this before. I was pulling my hair out, man, for a good part of the summer trying to get the tune where I wanted it and put Emu on it, and it was just like within a day I was in a better place. And I'm still tuning it a little bit, but
I remember those 2 videos that you sent me that where one was like right when you flashed Emu on it. It was like literally 40% better instantly.
It was crazy, yeah. And now, I mean, my latest build is like, I think I need to touch roll a tiny bit in terms of getting, yeah, baby, and getting a little bit of wobble out of there. And it's really hard to bring it out though. So like, I'm not that worried about it. You know what I mean? But yeah.
Is it something you can fly around? Like that last 10%.
Yeah, totally. Let me bring up
if you're really trying.
So
fly around that last little bit.
So whoops, man. I mean, it's winter time for us Northerners, generally speaking, and about middle of the country. Obviously, you're cold. So it is whoop season, and so. I mean, I'm out of touch a little bit. I wish I was a little more in touch with the Whoop community. I've been too focused on large quads myself. But like, what's hot with the like FCs right now and stuff and like motors? Does anybody know? Like,
I'm not the one to talk to, but anybody in the chat, if y'all have suggestions, I'm gonna put together one in the next month or two. Let me know what I need to buy. Let me know. I want something that flies as close to a 5-inch as possible.
I've heard that the Mobula 6 is pretty good.
Something that can run Emu flight.
Mobula 6. From what I've been hearing, Newbie Drone might be sending some of their whoops out stock with Emu flight in the future. So,
dude, that would be big.
They're working on a few things to deal with that because they work with Patrick from Project Mockingbird quite a bit.
Right.
Yeah.
He's been working with them and he's been really liking Emu flight. So he's suggesting that they just, kind of run his setup that he would put on it stock and sell it that way.
Yo, what's up, Mary? So. That's dope. So like motors right now, has anybody built a Whoop recently? Like,
yeah, I mean, I'm building one right now. Not this second. Not this second.
What are you building? Yeah. Tell us what you're doing over there.
But yeah, I mean, the Whoop boards over the last 3 months have gotten crazy. Like all the new Whoop boards are really, really good. Here,
I saw that Newbie Drone just had dropped something, and I know there's some things coming. But what's that?
These are more like the toothpick boards.
Is that pyro board?
What board?
Yeah, this is just a pyro. That's just a pyro version of the beta. Beta FPV has them, but it's really nice because like on the old Whoop boards, you have to do all the soldering like almost in the middle. Here they have it all on the side,
on the edges. Yeah,
that's dope.
It won't focus because it's just focusing on me.
I've got an older Newbie Drone F3 that I was rocking, and I threw Emu flight on it when we had some F3 targets to play with, and it was fucking killer. My other Whoop is an Alien Whoop, which is amazing. That's on Silverware, and but I need to build one myself. I need to get some ideas myself of what to build for the rest of this winter because I saw the Newbie Drone board. I should reach out to Charlie Stevenson and see what he's saying. I want to get some ideas, but I think
did they ever come out with the brushless version of theirs?
Who?
Yeah, they have it.
Or Alien?
Newbie.
Yeah,
Newbie has it on their website.
What is that thing called?
I think it's 1 and 2S. The brushless, the V-Brain brushless, something like that.
It's actually called the brushless board.
Probably.
It just came out with some 20.
I don't know. I feel like I've been seeing it for like 6 months.
There was something I saw last night I was checking out and I can't remember. I'm gonna Google it here in a sec. But
yeah, B-Brain brushless. That's kind of a tongue twister, right?
Yeah, right. Are you on the site?
Yeah, I'm looking at it now.
I mean, I was just rocking black and gold motors from Newbie, and I wanted to try. I think I have a set of those They look like the Brother Hobbies. They're like the crazy colored ones. But
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything like hitting or hot right now.
Oh, you just reminded me of something.
Send it.
If I can find it, I'm gonna try and find a picture. Have you seen those new motors that have the PCB board on them?
That's a LED.
No. So if you
I
notice
saw
with
that
like,
one too.
you know, like most of the motors that you have, like the tiny whip motors, how those little wires, you'll end up pulling them out of the motor and just ruining them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've started adding.
Yeah.
I'm
Tiny
trying to
whip,
find a
right?
picture of that. I
think
can't
it's
find
on
one, but
the-
they're starting to add like a little PCB board to the bottom of the motor.
That's sick.
Where you
That's
screw
dope.
it in,
That's sick.
and it has 3
That's
solder points
necessary.
for you. So if you break one of those wires, you can just solder right back on, and it adds like
Why did that take so long?
0.1 grams. I don't know. It's
It's weight,
I've seen
man.
that, and I'm like, dang,
It
I
is-
want that.
I'm sure it's the weight, man, because that's what I would be concerned
But there is
with.
weight. The board was already there, though, man. The back plane of the motor could have done it for. I think it could have done it for a while.
I mean, I'm sure they could. They would just say. I mean, I just think maybe the technology was not ready to handle the weight as well or something. But I knew mine. If I got it over like 28
Yo,
grams,
not for
I'd be like,
nothing. No,
shit.
yo, I know some of my boys that are really into whoops. They're gram counters. Like I made an alien whoop mount for a camera like last year, and it was like crazy. We're sending revisions to Charlie, and we're like weighing it and like see how. Like if we could make it as like I don't remember what it weighed off the top of my head, but we made it lighter than anything was out there, and it was 3D printed. It was pretty
Hey.
sick.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I can't. I have to notice that Travis is like creating sparks over here. Like got the cutoff wheel out.
Yo, I don't know, man. I
Here we
guess I
go.
put Loctite on that bolt or something, and it wouldn't come off.
I like
Yeah,
your
I just-
style, brother. I
I'm
like
fighting
your
with it,
style.
with it for like 2-3 minutes. I'm like, why am I doing this? I got.
Just
I don't
cut
know.
that thing in half and
Yeah,
move
Oh,
on.
okay.
I don't know. Dude,
Great
it was, like,
work.
on there really tight. Like I don't know.
I didn't even know. I didn't notice it originally, and I was looking at the stream on YouTube, and I was like, "Oh, those are sparks."
What'd you do?
Fucking
What'd you cut
Dremel,
it off
man.
with a Dremel? I didn't even catch
Yeah.
it.
Oh yeah, it was good.
Wow.
You know,
So I
that's a
actually-
good, that's a good tip actually. So one thing that I learned last year is if you bend a bell on a motor or bend a shaft, or you have to change a bell, and on the non-C clip on the bolt-in bells, they use some fucking crazy Loctite, right? I mean, like this shit is crazy. And if you're not careful and you don't have really good tools, you will strip the head rather than get the fucking thing off, and then you have a big pain in the ass. So
That is true, buddy.
so what I learned, check it. Take your soldering iron, put it on about
Heat it.
medium heat, drop a little flux on the head of the bolt, drop the tip of your soldering iron in there and warm it up. Then pull it.
Yeah, that actually works. The first time I messed around with like
yeah,
a
it's what we
bolt-on
do with
bell,
guitars.
did that because I've always heard bad things happen.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, it worked.
Yeah, that
Came out like
definitely
butter.
helps.
That's a tip that saved my ass because
It
I
can, but if you got red Loctite on it for whatever reason,
heated up, bro. That's what was
I
on the
think that was red Loctite.
that's what was
that
on the
bolt.
Brother
That's
Hobby
definitely-
motor.
dude,
I stripped the head on a Brother Hobby, bought another one. I ended up dremeling off the other one to get the old bell off. I didn't care about the bell. I was able to. I had to pitch it anyway. But bro, got another one and fucking. I hit it with an iron. I put a little flux on it and even put a little bit of solder on the head. And I got that. I didn't. You don't want to cook the motor, obviously, but you want to get it
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
warm. That
Yeah, you
shit.
gotta
will,
get hot.
That shit will break.
that's why you want that flux so you can get it out.
Yeah. You need that transfer.
Yeah.
And speaking of flux, something that I've been using on all my builds lately is SMD flux for surface mount devices. It comes,
Really?
dude, I'm loving it. It comes in a little bottle about yay tall with a needle, like a
Nice.
fucking, and you literally just drop a dot on your pad or whatever it is you're soldering, and then hit it, boom, doom, and it comes out shiny and beautiful every single time. And it burns away rapidly, so you're not going to overheat your board and pull the burn the trace off the PCB. It heats and it goes away quickly, and it's easy to clean with a little bit of alcohol. That's.
Yeah.
Check it out, man. I got it off
Yeah, for sure.
I got some off Amazon for I don't know, fucking less than $10, and it just came in a little bottle, like an ounce and a half bottle or so, and I've had it for ages because I do some SMD rework stuff, and I was like, one day I was soldering, and I'm like, let me try this. on my ES. I had an ESC that was being a pain in the ass, like a bad lipo or something. And I'm like, let me try a little bit of this. And I tried it. And it was amazing. It was like the best shit ever.
Yeah, that's awesome. I just hit it really hot, really fast.
That's good on like motor tabs and a lot of shit. But
yeah, maybe I find it fine for everything, to be honest.
lipos.
Yeah, I keep my soldering station on like the max. Like it's on like 842 degrees right now.
I just get if you go quickly, if you make sure that you're heating it properly, like so you're melting the solder on the tab. You got to be fast.
You got to be fast. Yeah.
And you got to be on. I've done a lot of soldering on guitars for years.
Too much flux and too much heat for too long will fuck your board up.
Yeah, bad. And too much heat on anything.
That's why I never recommend. Like I do that, and I do tell some people like hit it hard and fast, but like. Don't hit
That's
it.
what she said.
That's what she always says. But fucking, but be careful. A lot of people don't realize that because it is easy to fuck up your board. I see guys send me pictures like, my RX two pad is gone now because I hit, too much heat.
Well, it's like they get it. I see a lot of guys that get really impatient with like kind of cheaper soldering irons that don't have regulated heat.
Change your tip.
Not only that, but you got to have at least a little bit of experience.
Yeah.
I just think you have to be paid. Yeah, if you don't have a decent soldering station,
this is my favorite soldering station.
Yeah, I'm with him. I'm with him.
Yeah, I got this big battery pack. What is it? A 2000 milliamp hour 4S, and I've just got the.
Yeah, me too. I just run
my really crappy batteries that I don't want to fly anymore.
I can't. My shit's in the other room, and I have a station with a rework on it, and so. But for mine, I run a really super fine tip.
Station,
and I have to change a tip if I'm doing larger points. But even with that, and you could do 500. But even with that, I find on some like the Hobby Wing 4-in-1 boards, the lipos, it's not hot enough to really get a good solder joint on it. So I have like an 800-watt fucking crazy iron that glows red hot, and I literally fucking like go click, and it's just like doof. It's just like
where was that when we had to solder that skateboard?
Bro, I ended up. That's where I bought that fucking thing from, was because that soldering or that stupid skateboard. I bought it because we couldn't get the fucking. We were trying to solder something, and my iron was not cutting it on full blast. Just wasn't.
Yeah, like my soldering iron is not working, so I went over his house and brought mine. So with both of us,
two irons on the fucking thing.
One connection.
Should not.
Dude, it melted in like a half a second. All of a sudden, the solder's all liquid.
Oh, bro!
Like
it was like his iron wouldn't do it, my iron wouldn't do it, but both of them together would totally do it. And so like the next day, I got on Amazon and found out like a fucking like this crazy iron. It's like it's like
an automotive.
Yeah, it's like for two
automotive grade
for like doing car battery terminals, dude. It's insane. It's like,
I don't know about y'all, but I love Amazon.
And but then I learned, but with my station, I have to change the tips if I want to like when I'm working on RX pads and shit. I use a really fine tip, and then I have a big flat broadhead tip for doing motor wires. But I tend to do my ES or my lipo stuff with the big iron. Like,
okay, so like being you guys fly the macros, right? The 10-inch, the motors. Do they have heavier gauge wire on the motors? What motor sizes are you guys using on that stuff?
The motors use 18 gauge wires. Even like the bigger, like the T5 motors.
Yeah.
It's not much bigger than
no
5-inch.
Yeah, it's like slightly bigger. Not really.
Yeah.
Most of the macro stuff is just 5-inch stuff. Like all the parts, the motors are bigger, the propellers are a little bigger.
The fucking props are huge.
I don't even have props on this one. Fucking yeah, I think that's really you're gonna see a lot of heavier gauges on your lipos with the macros. You're gonna see more 8 to 10, 12 gauge stuff happening on the macros and X's.
Well, is everybody just running 6S, or is everybody running 12S, 8S?
A lot of the macros are around 6 to 8, and then as you get into Beast, you're more 8 to 12.
Or Beast is what, 13?
Beast is more about the way it's almost like the construction. They're built more for 8 to 12. A lot of guys are running 12, but you're gonna see a lot of extruded aluminum and box style arms, like box carbon arms, versus using a traditional frame.
Yeah.
Really, one of the few frame makers making an actual beast like plate frame is going to be Stefan from Stand-In Design. He makes some amazing beast class all carbon plate frames versus like what Travis was showing with the box carbon arms, which is how that's how a lot of beast and X class rocks.
Catalyst Machine Works makes a beast class as well.
They make a beast class, but I'm pretty sure it's using extruded.
I don't
Yeah,
know about.
I think
it's using
box carbon.
Box carbon, yeah.
Yeah.
The Cannonball. That's a dope frame. I mean,
Yeah. Whatever Bardwell had or has
Yeah, that's what I know it from.
is pretty sick.
But as far
it
as
looks fun.
but honestly,
the Cannonball Tasmanian.
No.
Yeah, maybe that
is what it is. It's a Cannonball. I know they have a couple. I think that they have a couple, but most of the guys that were building. So I mean, there wasn't really a lot of 10 like basher and racer like macro quads per se. A lot of people weren't making actual frames really though. They were taking a couple carbon plates, using box carbon, making some kind of motor mount, and doing an X class. And then that started to shrink, and you saw Beast class. And then over this last year or so, Travis has been building.
It does seem like 10-inch kind of just came out of nowhere almost.
I don't know how long Stefan's been making frames, but I know Allman Racing's was around for a while before it became standard.
Early 2018 is when his stand-in stuff blew up.
Right. Back then that was Allman Racing at that time, right? So they changed. They were Allman Racing.
Well, I think Stand-In was
right.
Stand-In, but Allman Racing was like the store. Was like
okay.
The merchant site. I think, pretty sure.
But as far as manufacturers go, like there wasn't a lot of people building, like I said, a full plate frame. And now you have like Mayday. There's a couple other people doing it. The Rebel, the mini quad that just came out, that Yeti.
Baller looking.
So you're starting to see more.
That thing looks sweet.
You're starting to see more actual
sick.
like what traditional style frames in the macro, and the 10 to 13.
iFly jumped into it with the DC-10 and the
Well,
XL10.
they just figure out whatever's popular and just pump out.
And then there's that
whatever
QAV thing, that QAV XL or whatever. What was that one we were looking at the other day? The QARV or QAV or whatever the fuck?
The Lumineer came out with
one.
10-inch.
AVR2 10-inch.
Right.
It's kind of like
it's
a box in the middle, and then the arms come out of it, like further.
It's got
a weird design.
It's got like side struts.
Yeah, it's a really weird design.
Is like for the plates to extend outward over the arm. Like if you get away with a 6mm arm, if you have the center plates kind of extend outward. Like this is like a source one that I modded. Usually you want these plates to extend out over the arm as far as you can, and that'll add a little bit of strength to it. But Lumineer didn't do that.
So that's
but iFlight did. iFlight did.
iFlight did. That's good.
See some of that
I was really
here.
surprised. The iFlight frame, it looks nice.
This is my Stand-In Slim Nasty, and this is actually using 2 pieces of 5mm carbon that I had to fucking laminate together. And basically what that means is sand it, clean it, sand it, clean it some more, sand it some more, check it for fucking contaminants.
Yeah.
Do a water break test, and you actually run distilled or
water break test.
You run distilled water or deionized water over it, and if it beads around something, you have a contaminant in that area. So then you have to keep sanding it, and then use acetone and alcohol to clean it, and then you ultimately use a aerospace grade epoxy to take the 2 arms and actually laminate them together. So you can see this is the bottom part of the arm, and then this is the top up here. And I can barely get this fucking thing in frame. Let's go with the fucking props.
Huge.
Yeah, it's a monster. This is one of my favorites. This was my first one, and started me on my journey.
Dope.
Lamination is a pretty useful thing to know, though, because like when I did the BQE 10-inch mod, the build plate the build deck in here, right here, this middle plate. It's only a 2mm plate on the stock Bando, and I'm like, well, I'm getting these 10-inch arms cut, and knowing what I know and based on the first frame that I built, I was like, there's gonna be a lot of fucking pressure gonna crash on these arms, so I'm like, fuck it. So I asked Bill, I'd like, please send me 2 plates. And I popped all the press nuts out of one of them and fucking sanded the shit out of it, sanded the other one, and epoxied and clamped it and left it sit for like 2 days and just let it cure up. And that shit is solid as a fucking rock. So now I have a 4mm build deck. So if you want to make a frame more robust, you can double plates, but you want to make sure that you somehow attach them so you don't get some like, weird vibration between them. So what's going on with Kiss?
Well,
I know we talked about it a
far as
little
I know-
bit, but
Being expensive.
hey, we have
Not
a
more
new-
expensive than like a good T-motor stack though,
I mean, yeah, no, it's more expensive, but it's just better in my opinion.
well, that was one thing about the FET techs, though. The FET techs bring it down to about 120 a stack versus
That's
T-motor
tolerable.
stacks like 120.
that's tolerable. The Flyduino stuff is
Yeah.
like 70 for the FC, and then whatever 40, 50. How much an ESC?
It's $30. It's like 28,
So
20
you're 120
to $30.
120 deep in the ESCs, and then it's $190, for a Flyduino setup. That's a little rough.
And then if you want to, PDB with some OSD, that's another $50.
Oh, I forgot.
So it ends up being about
that.
240 for a
So
setup.
does the FET tech have OSD on it?
No,
It does.
I don't really.
Of course not.
I
course
don't
not.
really understand that personally, but they have to have some kind of logic to
They're
it.
doing a 4-in-1. They don't have any PDB anymore.
You have to buy a regulator and an OSD.
You're gonna buy
board.
are we back to minimum?
They're
OSD,
like
dude?
they're
Yeah.
like
Minimum
they're like
OSD up in this
$8
bitch?
and like $15 respectively, something like that.
They're going back to the.
Yeah,
And only the
it's
Apex
a move I don't
has
really.
a specific space for it. So if you're using a different frame, good luck figuring out how to put all that shit
That's
in there.
genius, dude.
Like
That's
you ain't
why-
putting Kiss on a fucking
That's why
Bandolero.
Impulse and Steel are geniuses. Like
Like if somebody put Kiss on a
that's crazy.
Bandolero, I want to see
I
how
don't
they
really
did it.
understand the reasoning behind that. I'm sure somebody much smarter than me knows.
What? No OSD?
Yeah. Why? There's gotta be a reason. Like these people are not. I'm sure they've heard plenty of feedback about the OSD situation.
So we've had this conversation personally, but
Yeah.
I love the idea of Kiss, and I probably should actually buy a setup and run it on a 5-inch just to have that experience and have a rig of my own and know what that's about, And but realistically right now, man, I mean, my focus has been on the larger quads. And the lack of high power ESCs is the problem right now for me. And the lack of OSD is another one because I got to see what the fuck's going on with those things. You know what I mean? Like I need to know what my batteries are doing, what my motors are doing as much as possible.
Yeah, it's just not going to be as enjoyable for me if I can't see.
Yeah, one of the-
and know all those things. It's
Biggest
comfort
thing for
zone.
me with OSD, you can get a camera that can tell you your battery voltage, but
True.
I love that tuning on the go.
Yeah.
That's so nice for me,
OSD.
especially
Yeah.
as a developer.
couldn't
'cause I
tune
can
for
stick a new
shit.
feature in there.
Well, I mean, with
Try it out in the field.
Lua, I mean, if I can put Lua on my transmitter, anybody can. So
What are you saying, Artie? No, that's bullshit. Yes.
I'm just saying that if you got
I
Lua,
have
you
both.
don't really.
I have the Lua and
when I
OSD.
started flying Kiss, there was like the Steel PDB had just come out,
Right.
and you just couldn't get it. So it was like I flew for 6 months without OSD. So I made some ways.
The best Lua script in the world though is the one that shows you all the VTX bands. If you don't have it, get it.
Yeah, I don't have that one.
It's a good one. I don't have it because I'm on a Nirvana now, and nobody bothered to port it over to Nirvana yet. But I have it on my Tyrannus, and it's the best thing ever in the field.
Hey, does anybody? You've got the Nirvana. how does that thing fly?
I mean,
It looks so cool, but
I love it, dude. The gimbals out of the box are, destroy anything else that I've ever used. Personally,
they look like they have a longer throw than the like X9D.
I honestly never measured it, but it doesn't really feel that way to me. But it could be. I can grab mine. I packed it, but the sticks are Hall gimbals, and it's just the way they're positioned. Like they're in a good position on the sides of the radio, the curvature of the radio, the ergonomics of the radio. It takes getting used to because, as most of us are used to a box, we're used to a fucking square box radio of some variation, with the exception being the Tango guys, maybe, and now the X-Lite and stuff, but.
X-Lite, that's me.
X-Lite is too small for me, bro. I can't fucking fly with it. The gimbals are way too loose and sensitive for me. And like with the Nirvana, the first thing I did was open it up and put high tension springs in it. Out of the box, the Nirvana springs are a little loose, but FlySky throws some high tension springs in there. But if you don't have them, you can get the Tyrannus ones. It's the same shit. And then you would just adjust it. I put the high tensions in and turned it up with the adjuster, and mine, I'm a PlayStation kid, grew up with a controller, I'm fucking.
Yeah, you got that.
I want
stiff outer
that
stick.
fresh controller stick feel, and I'm a hybrid pinch, so I don't.
Oh, really?
I'm a hybrid. I don't pinch. I just rest.
No, that's what I fly, man. I just thought the Nirvana was more kind of set up for thumbs.
I think
so. It surprises me that you.
I think a lot of thumbers do gravitate towards it. I think that it takes a little getting used to, but after flying it, and then if I have to run my Tyrannus for something, I'm just like, ugh, this doesn't feel.
Yeah, I bet that's weird.
Doesn't feel right anymore. It really doesn't. And I really I'm really excited to see the Tango, new Tango, the Tango 2, and the see where that comes. I mean, unfortunately, I won't buy it because I run full power Crossfire. And that's limited to 250, which is fine for most people, and fucking anybody running whoops or anything all day long. But
for sure.
but I got my ham license for a reason. I want to fucking crank it up. So
I don't blame you.
I don't actually. I run 500 usually on the regular. I've got really good penetration through the woods and shit with that. So
I will say this: I had 250, and I went a mile out without problem.
If you have line of sight, you can go hella far.
There's people that go over a mile on stock FR Sky gear. So.
For sure.
Yeah,
but
I would never fucking do
that's
it.
a really long way for me.
I would never do it. I would never send ever Sky out that far, bro. Fuck that.
Hell no. Hell no.
After I bought my Crossfire secondhand off a buddy of mine, in front of Trav and I's, and I had it, and it sat in a box for. I think I got it kind of late in the season, a couple years back, and it sat in a fucking box on the shelf for until the next year. And then when I built my first Carrera, I'm like, all right, let me just see what this Crossfire shit's all about. And it was a wrap after that. I was like, I'm never going back. Nothing, never again. I've never built another FR Sky based quad since.
Word.
The fucking dude, the over the air updates and shit. It's just everything's just too easy.
FR Sky's gonna be adding that.
Yeah, I mean,
you're an FR Sky fan.
That's cool. I mean, everything, but everybody should add that. I mean, it's trying to hook it up to your Tyrannus, hook up an RX to your Tyrannus. The worst is when you have to pull your RX out of a working build because they updated OpenTX.
That's infuriating
They updated fucking OpenTX and did something, but to make that work, you have to update your fucking RX and just whatever it is, whatever the case may be. There was bugs at one point where telemetry wasn't working
just better,
right.
Man.
Oh,
Crossfire's just better.
It's if you update
all around.
If you update,
everything,
could you imagine though?
systems.
You update your FR Sky, put it back in the build, and then there's a bug, and you have to downgrade. So then you got to pull it back out of the quad, put it back on the fucking Tyrannus, and fucking downgrade, and then put it back in the quad. That. That just I could never do it anymore. I've actually heard some interesting word that
FR Sky is actually working with their new access protocol, although I'm definitely not a fan of that stuff.
Yeah.
Along with that, they're trying to make a smart port 2.0 that'll give you a lot more functionality, like the ability to actually use the smart port 2.0 to connect to a GUI. So you'll use, with their new transmitters, they've got Bluetooth. And so you'll use the Bluetooth to connect your transmitter to the PC. And then your transmitter will talk to your flight controller through your GUI.
I mean,
so you don't even have to plug anything in. That's kind of cool, but
yeah,
it's not.
It's just not enough for me.
I don't.
You pulled some straight fuckery.
Here's my story. When I go to the field,
that I just have bad taste for.
I turn on my radio and I plug in my quad, and if it's not working, it goes, "Hey, do you want to update?" I say, "Yeah." And I sit there for a minute and then I fly.
Exactly.
It's like done.
As far around yourself as your video will allow.
Oh, bro, yeah. I mean, with the new Bando build, I'm really impressed with my video feed on that one. Which is something we should talk about at some point, is power in video. Maybe we can kind of segue into that now.
Keep it away from it.
I started using the transient voltage suppression diodes on that build, on my 10-inch build, in conjunction with a capacitor. You strap it across. It's negative BIOS strapped across your actual LiPo pads. So on a 4-in-1, you just strap it across your LiPo pads, and then you also put your cap in just like you would normally. And effectively, what it does is it knocks down spikes. So if you're running whatever 6S rig and you're getting 32 or 35 or 40 volt spikes, the TVS diode will knock it down to like 27 or something. So that prevents those spikes from actually hitting your cap and the rest of your power system. And it keeps them managed. So right now, what most people are doing is just running a cap. And your cap will do it, but it makes that cap work a lot harder. And the more spikes, the higher frequency of spikes hitting a cap will degrade its lifespan. So the more of that the cap has to deal with, the shorter lifespan you'll get with the actual capacitor. It's all about frequency. ESR actually varies with the frequency that's getting hit with at times. So it's important, and something I've just been learning about personally and experimenting with on my 10-inch build is the suppression diodes, and I can go a lot further and hit my throttle, blip my throttle really hard, and I don't see shit from anything. It's crystal clear.
Nice, man. I've never really had to do, I mean, I don't know if it's just build clean, get clean video, but I always power my VTX from, full, from bat voltage.
Mm-hmm.
I always, do the same thing with the camera.
So the challenge is there, though, if you're not, and again, if you're using a PDB and stuff, it can get even more hairy at times. Like a lot of people experience OSD flicker depending on how they wire up their system. You know what I mean? And
yeah, I used to have that problem.
So the reality,
I've seen that a lot on Betaflight.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And the reality of, and actually, so number one, I only buy an FC that has a VBAT pass through. Okay, I do not wire my HV VTX to the LiPo. I wire it to the flight controller on the VBAT output. And the right way to do it is a straight line to ground, okay? So from your camera, which is your very input, that's the beginning of all things video in your rig, from your camera to your VTX, right? To your flight controller. Now, why is that important? Well, this comes down to the OSD flickering thing and some other problems. You want your camera and VTX to be grounded to the flight controller, and it is technically on the other side of your ESC because that ground plane hits, but what ultimately you're doing is you're creating multipathing. Just like you hear about multipathing in your video signal, you have multiple grounds going to ground, which is ultimately your LiPo in this case, right? Multipathing a ground is bad news. That's where you can create what's called a ground loop. And that's where you'll see rolling in your video. That's where you'll see flicker in your OSD. You'll see problems so a lot of people will wire their VTX to LiPo, then they'll get 5-volt or something off their flight controller for their camera, and then they're wiring their flight controller to their ESC that's ultimately going back to their LiPo, which is where their VTX is. Well, if you think about it, you got a big circle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because your camera is ultimately also hitting that too, and that's a loop, all right? And a loop can propagate issues, all right? So if you run a straight line starting with your camera through your VTX, to your flight controller, through your ESC, to your battery, which is ground, there's no way you're gonna have a loop. So for me, doing that, and then in between my LiPo and my ESC is where I'm putting these diodes and these in my filtering. And for me, that's working out really good. I don't do a lot of single ESC builds these days for a number of reasons, but
yeah, well, I'm running 6S on a KISS V2 setup, 32 amp ESCs with 220, 50 volts caps on each ESC.
on each ESC, right?
And that may have something to do with it. I'm honestly just a retard that flies toys. So.
No, it definitely will keep back feeding from your ESCs going back to your PDB.
And I've always been really lucky as far as video goes.
It's maybe there's some filtering in you're using the Wolf PDB?
Yeah.
So, I mean, because ultimately your PDB is your ground plane, right?
Sure.
So I'm sure that they've thought really long and hard about what I'm describing in terms of what, about that topology. Travis and I have talked about this considerably because we've experienced a lot of crazy shit with bad capacitors.
Well, I've definitely had more issues with Betaflight as far as video is concerned.
So there's something to be said about the PDB, most likely. That's helpful.
Well, and a lot of those Betaflight flight controllers are just made cheaper than the KISS stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they can just get whatever cheap Chinese components they make. The KISS stuff just has a higher quality.
I used to run my VTX
I hope so,
wiring.
but it certainly seems that way.
What's that, Trav?
I used to run my VTX wiring like all kinds of ways, and Chad's always yelling at me to wire it up his way, try it his way. So like one time I did, and I was like, "Shit, Chad's right." Like I used to try to power the VTX using the 5-volt provided by the Helio, and he's like, "No, just let use the 5-volt from the VTX." And the whole thing I was thinking is, well, I'm gonna run this video wire from the camera just to the flight controller and then to the VTX without using any of the ground. And it didn't make sense to me to do that, but it made a big difference. Just letting the VTX power it and having the VTX connected to the VBAP heads and the flight controller, like it actually did make a difference enough that I went back over all my quads and changed them.
Oh shit, I didn't even know that. That's good.
That's crazy.
I might not have told you that.
Because again, because that was a big thing. Is a lot of people because you could wire, some cameras will take VBAT and they would wire both their camera to the LiPo and their VTX to the LiPo, and they never even touch their flight controller, and then they have OSD flickering and other ground looping problems there. Because what happens is that you get a ground potential on your actual video line coming from the camera to the flight controller and then back to the VTX. And so, like, again, it's like you're making a spider web to ground versus just fucking running a straight line.
When you explain it to me like that, I'm like, oh, all right, that kind of makes sense.
It's not.
That's what I'm like. All right, fuck it, let me try it.
I think that's probably why you see a lot of filtering on PDBs. You see a lot more caps on PDBs, and then you're also, like you said, you're running individual caps on your ESCs, and then I'm sure there's caps in your PDB. You're muted, Artie.
Hi. Hello.
Yeah. I'm trying to.
No, there's loads of caps on them and ESCs, but I've knocked caps off the ESCs and still run. Good video, fly fine.
Well, a lot of people, I get a lot of comments.
Just for the win, bud.
A lot of comments from guys that have gone from 4S to 5S to 6S. And I get a lot more comments about, hey, something blew up, my VTX blew up, or my camera blew up, or something failed because of the spikes in 6S in that powertrain, And so I think that I've seen some things I really think just blew up because of a weird ground potential in that system.
Yeah.
Because as a motor gets driven by the fucking, the pulse width modulation and gets sent out to the 3 phases on the motor and then, but ultimately a motor can also be a generator and is a generator. So as it gets pushed by the current, it's back feeding current back into your system. So if you don't have some way to bleed that off the ground, it's going to go fucking everywhere.
Yeah.
That
makes sense.
So that's, really clutch about it. Using good caps too, man. I mean,
for sure.
Don't think that because you can get X amount of caps, for X price. I'll buy the fuck off of them on Amazon. I'm not gonna lie, but I look up the spec and I make sure I'm getting,
Just double check. I go with Panasonics.
Rubicons and Panasonics, yeah.
I mean, just because I know that they're good. And the only ones that I've blown have been because I wired them backwards. Like, you know what I mean?
I used to do that in class.
One of my first builds, I did.
Yeah. I used to do that on batteries in high school. Like,
dude, when I plugged it in, it sounded like a gunshot went off.
Yeah. And if you do like the 1,000, oh, dude.
Yeah, mine was in 1,000. There was like all this residue all over the carbon. It was nasty.
I did that on my first build and I about shit myself.
Yeah, the first time I did that, I think I did a little.
I mean,
for sure.
Again, though, like it's why I'm saying, like it's important that your hardware needs to be up to speed in terms of onboard filtering. And I find that I've seen some flight controller manufacturers say, oh, we don't want a BEC on our flight controller. We don't want to run VBAT through our flight controller because it can introduce noise into the flight controller. Maybe. I suppose it could. I mean, I guess from my perspective, especially with the Helio is a really good example. The Helio is running a 32K PID loop with a 32K gyro, which is really susceptible to noise, but yet they ran VBAT right through the motherfucker, but they filtered it. And however they did it, it works, and we don't see that in the gyro at all.
Well, it does now, for sure.
So like that's the thing, and then like the Talon boards from that HeliDirect to they have a built-in reel pit, I believe, that you can choose a couple different ways. You can either choose 5 volt or you can choose VBAT through the switch, which is kind of dope. I'm not sure what the amperage limit is, but I'm sure it's like an amp or so. But having said that, it's also filtered. So, I mean, any board like that that's going to give you that option to get a filtered VBAT off of that flight controller, that's clutch, because ESCs, they're not worried about it, generally speaking. No. You can get VBAT or 5 volt or 12 volt or whatever off of fucking ESC. But the other side of that coin, which I found out last summer, is on some of them, if you blow the BEC on the ESC on a 4-in-1, you kill the whole fucking 4-in-1. So all your other MOSFETs, everything's good except the fucking BEC, the brain that powers it, is kaput because you killed the BEC.
Yeah,
that sucks.
That happened to me on a hobby wing, but they replaced it, and I have the other one. I just figured I'd keep it for parts, but it is something to be aware of. So what I quit doing personally is I just don't use the BEC on an ESC. I just run everything off VBAT and dither it down from there. I actually. So on that build, which is my nasty build, I was running a Radix at the time. I powered the whole fucking kit and caboodle that needed 5 volt. I powered all that shit off the Unify Pro 32. So I ran VBAT into the Pro 32, and then I fucking ran the flight controller, the crossfire, the fucking camera, the whole fucking shit was fucking ran off that, just so I could bypass the BEC on the ESC.
Word. It's a lot of work to do that.
You're just you power your flight controller off the VTX and then power everything off the 5 volt rail off the flight controller. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Makes sense, bud.
And all of that, any sort of video noise you're getting, that's not just affecting your video, but that noise will get transferred to your gyro, which then means you got to run more internal filtering, but you can't always get around all of that.
Right.
It can just be a real
more delay.
I'm happy. I found what was wrong with my 5-inch. One of the motor wires got disconnected from the LED race wire.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wait, what
that's always
happened?
the worst. Just
Did you just take the whole thing apart to find just that?
Yeah.
Oh, is that what happened the other day? Oh,
Yeah.
fuck.
That's
That sucks.
Just this little wire. Yeah. My bando, like, I don't know, my bando, I just took everything apart, plugged it in, shook the shit out of it. I don't know. I don't know, I'm streaming. I shook because when we were at the field, fucking Chad was like, all right, let me see. Plugged it in, shook it, it would just turn off. I'm like, he's like, yeah, we'll fix that, then we'll figure out the rest. Oh, I fixed that. Yeah, my cat's asleep, or else I would test hover it in the room. Yeah, that means I just have to rewire that, put some new shrink wrap on, and
Well, that's better than your foreign one
Yeah.
being fucked.
yeah, I mean
For
it's
sure.
like it's only I just fried my 4-in-1 like 2 months ago because of what did I do again?
What?
Oh yeah,
2 months ago.
I
See,
did
when
something stupid.
Hey, first, how long have you been flying?
So I did the calculations. So I've been flying 5-inch. I've been flying 5-inch for
Yeah.
I think
Give me that
6 months now,
calculation.
and then I did 3 months of sim and like whoop stuff.
At
So
6
8
months,
8 months total.
I had probably bought 40 4-in-1s.
Jesus
Oh my
Christ.
God.
No, I mean that's an exaggeration, but dude, it was like every time you
Uh,
crashed with the first kind of generation when they came out, like if you took a crash that was, you know, I don't know, as
Little
average as a
hard.
beginner gives it. Like
I started with single builds. I started with single ESC
Yes.
builds. My buddies were like, oh, you know, I don't think
I was replacing like twice a month.
foreign ones were not durable when they first came out. And all my friends were like, don't do it, dude. You, blah, blah, blah. You know, you have to replace, change the whole thing. So I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't know shit about it at the time. So I'm like, all right, yeah, okay. So I built singles. And it wasn't really until I started flying Acon that I started trusting foreign ones. And then Travis was big on T-motor. He really proved the T-motor 55 amp. I proved the Acons.
Yeah, T-motor and Acon seem to be the big,
I mean-
the best, you know.
The
high-end
first
DSC.
couple of
Hobby
BL
Wing.
Heli
Hobby Wing, too.
32
Yeah, as well.
rated to fly or Airbot 4-in-1s, the 30 amp.
Mhm.
Those were solid. I've still got some. The first Wraith,
Yeah.
I've still got one that works.
I had a
Like,
fucking race single that it would work. It would work fine. But every time it was a racing quad. Every time I went to the starting line, it would my motor would fail. And then I would bring it home, put it on the I'd bring it over, bring it on the bench. I'd try to figure it out. What the fuck?
the Wraith 32 singles I got for my 6-inch build. Like I still have like what are those motors? They were the red, the 2407s. They're not in business anymore. EFA.
Oh, the e-file? Yeah.
Yeah, I've got some EFA 2500s that literally have like 10 flights on them of about maybe 30 seconds total with terrible bearings. But dude, those Wraith 32s just were terrible.
So
Like,
with mine, it
could
drove
not get them.
it fucking drove me crazy for a minute, dude. And I'm like, I'm sitting here and I'm like, I would resolder it. So what had happened, in a nutshell, is that
What had
one of
happened
the one of the fucking surface mount caps came loose on one side. And my shrink wrap would hold it on most of the time. So I could fly, I would rip it. I would fly it. And then like the vibrations would keep it like working. But then I would go to fucking to the starting line of a race and fucking start it and it wouldn't start. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you know, and so finally I was like sitting there and I just took the shrink wrap off and I, you know, props off and all that, plugged it on the bench and would spin it up. And I just took a fucking plastic pen cap and started poking the ESC until it stopped. And then I'm like, poked it again. And it came on. I'm like, what the fuck? And so I kept, you know, and I pinpointed
Yeah.
it, found the cap, looked at it, hit it with my iron. Bitch has been solid ever since, dude. I was like, are you fucking serious? For like 2 or 3 months, it was driving me crazy. Like,
I don't have that kind of luck. That shit just looks at me and laughs hard as
just
fuck.
like, motherfucker.
Yeah, dude. Those are the worst, man. That's awesome though. Still works. Killer.
I mean,
I've never had that kind of luck. I tried to solder a MOSFET onto a KISS ESC, That was a fucking nightmare.
You need a workflow station.
Oh,
bro.
dude, I had a workflow
Oh, really?
station, and I just did a terrible job. It was the first time I tried to do it. I can do it now, but
I
it
started.
took a few. It took a few.
I started doing SMD repair on synthesizers. You know, I'm all about fucking
word.
synthesizers. So, excuse me, a company that a friend is Coma Electronics in Germany. They make some pretty awesome stuff, and they hit me up one time like, "Yo, do you think you could do this repair?" And I'm like, so they sent me directions. And even like YouTube links and all sorts of shit. They're like totally cool. There's these crazy German guys, and they're like you think you do this?
That's so.
And I'm like, all right, yeah,
this.
fuck it. They're good friends of mine. I'm like, yeah, fuck it, because you know, for them, for somebody to send their synthesizer back to Germany and all that, this person was in New York, you know, and I'm like, yeah, fuck it, let's do it. So they sent it to me, and I, you know, it took me a minute to get my heat right and all that, but once I figured it out, I started doing them on the regular. I'm like, this is fucking great. It's easier than soldering with an iron.
Oh yeah, if you have the right tools.
If you have the right setup, it's so easy because it's literally just clean it off, put a little bit of fucking flux on it and some paste on the pads, put your fucking chip on it, hold it with a pair of tweezers, and hit it with the gun, and just watch the fucking solder go right up to the legs. It just sucks right up to the legs and right to the pads, and then and then you're done. It's like 5 seconds, and the whole chip is on the board. It's so cool.
Yeah, it is cool. I'm always fascinated how that shit works.
I fixed Travis's LEDs actually on one of his rigs with my rig, and I fixed
with your rig. You used your rig to fix it.
Used my rig to fix his rig. Fucking, and
Rig
then
on rig
when I was
action.
building the nasty,
Two dudes, one quad.
When I was building the nasty, I had 3 red LED sticks for some reason and 1 white one. And I'm like, yo, Travis, you got any of those broken X-Class reds? He's like, yeah, dude. I'm like, sick. Let me have it. And so, like, I fucking sat there with the SMD gun and fucking pulled the LEDs off the stick, pulled all the yellow white ones off the other stick, put the reds on, and it's on my quad now and still rocking.
Oh, yeah, dude. That's awesome.
Dude, it's like anything like that. Like, I'm like, fuck it. Hell yeah.
Why?
I got to fix one of Travis's again, I think, unless he's going to make the whole quad blink.
Word.
Oh yeah,
So,
his quad's taking a right turn.
It's always taking a right or left turn. Yeah, it's always blinking out. One of the back lights is just blinking like he's turning.
that's awesome.
Here we go.
Wasn't there some setting where you, depending on where you're applying pressure, that one there's more light? Oh, it looks so sick.
It took us, dude. We were trying to figure it out. The first one I fixed for him, though, the actual LED can go bad, right? So the LED goes bad, and it makes the whole strip blink. And so, but it's like I fucking like heated it up.
See this one? It looks like this one right on the end,
right? Yeah. So if you push on them, they'll come on. So we thought it was just a loose joint on the fucking LED.
Yeah.
So we fucking took it off, cleaned it up, put it back on. It's blinking. I'm like, what the fuck? And we're poking on it, and like and then it's like another one we think is bad. So we change that. We redo that. And then finally, I'm like, wait a minute. And so I just yanked the fucker off, and I'm like, give me one of them broken sticks. And grabbed the broken stick, stuck a new LED on it, and it fucking worked. And it was solid. So.
Right on, dude. That's awesome.
I love how he's hammering on a 10-inch or 9-inch and this fucking on the props on.
flex pen.
Yeah, it's good stuff, man.
Yeah,
like I said,
you guys
dude,
with your flex paste.
I don't use paste. I just use the
you
fucking.
don't?
No, the stuff I was telling you about it's liquid and it comes in that little squeeze bottle, dude. It's the jam.
Flux is essential.
It's like an essential oil. It's like, you know.
I don't get people that build stuff without using flux.
I have never used flux once.
I've never.
I only use flux to rebuilds.
But I mean, unless it's like a fresh build, I generally don't.
One thing that I've always done, maybe it's not best practice, but any spot I'm going to solder, I put a little bit of flux on all of it and then solder.
Not bad. It's not bad.
It's not bad for it. I mean, it'll help you get a cleaner joint faster.
Dude, I've done it on when I'm joining wires. I've dropped a little bit of flux on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially if it's tiny wire, it's a good idea because what you want to do is just flash that area really hot, really quick, so you can make the solder get out of there without melting anything.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I solder pretty hot, generally speaking.
I'm at 360.
I went for years without using flux. I'm like,
Yeah, me too.
I flew from when I was a little kid. I mean, I flew some kind of plane. I started with control line and then basic, fucking FM controlled planes and bullshit. And then I got into 3D helicopters, and I soldered shit along. I've soldered shit. I was
My pocket hurts anytime somebody talks about
3D helicopters. I know. I've got 2 of them in the closet, but fucking. I repaired synthesizers for rock stars for years, like synthesizers and Rhodes. I can repair Rhodes. I can tune a Rhodes. I can repair Wurlitzers. I can repair Hammond organs. A lot of different vintage.
Hammonds are fun to
I
work
love
on,
the fucking
man.
Hammond organ, dude. It's the best thing ever. The fucking Leslie motors. I had a Leslie motor seize up, turn red fucking hot,
Oh, yeah,
dude.
they will too.
And
dude.
it was like, and I'm like,
Seen one catch fire.
so I had a spare Leslie, so I just fucking grabbed a spare Leslie, plugged it in, got us through the show, whatever. Next day, fucking pull this bitch apart. Leslies are great. If you don't know what a Leslie is, check it out. But it's a horn. It's got a motor. So, anyways, it goes high and low. And so what was happening was it was fucked up and it was getting jammed up in when you would go from high to low. So you go to high and you drop down to low and it would drop and it would jam up. Anyways, long story short, I ripped that bitch apart, cleaned it, greased it, threw it back together, and it ran fucking perfect. Is there tanks?
Yeah.
They're tanks, but
It's just been running for 50 years,
yeah, the one I had on, you should have seen the Hammond I had on Dixie Chicks, bro. It was fucking just.
Oh, but it was
I
dope.
bought a mint fucking Hammond with 2 fucking Leslies off a good friend of mine for that tour, and it was just like, yo. But that actually,
That's it.
segueing back into drones, which is actually a topic of our conversation. I want to do a thing with one of my synthesizers where I hook a drone motor up to it. So when I change the frequency of the oscillator, you'll be able to see the motor spin, and you'll be able to hear the oscillator. And then I'm gonna create a noise generator, and I'm also gonna put filters on it, so you'll be able to hear and see the effects on the motor and the ESC. And I'll be able to filter out the noise using filtering and show that how that responds. I'm gonna put a fucking think about using a transducer with a flight controller. You know what I'm saying?
go.
So like, I got some crazy ideas. I'm gonna do some cool shit for some of these streams coming up. But
Mad scientist.
yeah, baby. Yeah, baby. So fucking
New York legend.
So we kind of talked about whoops. I guess I'm not even paying attention at the time, so we should probably we are well into this. So we talked about whoops a little bit. Micros, like you want to talk about micros a little bit? Do you build any micros lately?
I've just built one of the kebab toothpicks.
Bob.
Kebab toothpick is I love his toothpick frames.
Yeah, they're super cool.
Yeah. Isn't he coming out with the 1S 3-inch toothpick?
Yeah, that's his next project. It's like,
Is that what he's flying at a millimeter over the ground?
Nah, that's
No.
a different setup.
this is the toothpick 3 with crossfire on there on the back.
That's awesome.
And that's the
Does it have that new mini Immortal T?
No, I saw that. This is the full size Immortal.
Yeah, I have
T.
a full size Immortal on my micro I just built.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this has the onboard DVR.
That thing's dope.
So the video doesn't look half bad, but it's
Yeah, it's
Like-
it is what it is, man.
yeah.
If it's decent,
My plan is to build one with the split nano. That's the HD version where I think it's like 720p or something. So that's my next project. That I built the frame out. I just haven't.
What motors did you use on it?
For that one, I'm gonna probably use some 1303s, but I've used like everything.
what's the best?
It depends. Like right now, I like these 1303s. This is the Ripsqueak.
Yeah, this is
I
mine.
have to put a new. I have 1303s on there. I have to put a new crossfire on there. This crossfire, I blew I don't know what it is, a capacitor or something, I guess.
You knocked a cap off, yeah.
Yeah, there's the ibex, there's the button, and then there's 2 LEDs. Whatever's next to those 2 LEDs is what I knocked off.
Not for nothing. I've seen a few of those myself. I've had a couple crossfires that I've had. Speaking of how great crossfire is, actually, lately I've seen a couple.
Yeah, there is some negatives sometimes.
I saw one. I don't know how the hell it happened. Like it was, I took a crossfire out of the bag. I fucking conformal coated it, a nano receiver. I soldered it up, And as you do, I was going through my testing phase, and I bound it, and then it wouldn't hold bind, and then it wouldn't update, and then it wouldn't connect. It was just doing weird shit.
We have success.
And
Nice.
turns out I sent a message over to fucking Mike Chen and those guys, and they sent me I said, hey, you got any pictures? I'm like, cool. And I sent pictures over, like, dude, you're missing a chip right there. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, brand new, bro, brand new out of the box. And I was like, I have no idea, like, how that could have happened. Like,
That's kind of what happened to mine. Like I flew, like this is, you've seen this. It used to be a 3-inch, and it with bi-blades. And I used to fuck with it, and then I rebuilt it as a 2.5-inch with the speed canopy. And for that, I had to take off the shrink wrap, the heat shrink, because yes, I do heat shrink my Crossfire, because fucking
absolutely heat shrink your Crossfire.
Because Kevin somehow doesn't do it. Our buddy Kevin's like, yeah, I don't heat shrink the Crossfire.
I heat shrink fucking everything to some degree.
But yeah, like when I was
at least fucking cover it in fucking a liquid E-tape.
yeah, like I took it off to extend the wires, and I guess when I was taking the heat shrink off, I must have just knocked it off or something. But it's like you look at it, it's like it's mint condition, and then there's just this little. It sucks because it's like $30 down the drain.
Well, the good thing is like since I just got mine, they ended up replacing mine. So I mean, you gotta watch that. That's one thing I think I was discussing with you.
These are from my 5-pack.
When you buy 5-packs of Crossfire, take them out, power them up, hook them up, bind them, and make sure they all work. Because chances are you're not going to make 5 builds in a month. And if you have 5 Crossfires laying around, if you don't find out that one of them's bad within your return period from your vendor, you're going to get fucked in the end, and you'll be out a Crossfire. You know what I mean? If you don't find one bad. But if you find one bad within your return period, then obviously they'll take care of you. Most reputable vendors will. So having said that, that's something I learned, because I caught it 3 days out from my return being my return window, and was able to get a replacement. And I tested every one that I had, and I ended up finding another bad one in the group. I bought like 7 at the same time, and I had 2 actually. And those are the first 2 bad ones I've ever had.
Hey, shout out to BQE in the chat.
What up? What up?
BQE, what up?
BQE. Fucking.
I'm gonna mute myself while I use my heat gun.
BQE.
You don't want to hear my fucking.
You don't want to do what?
We don't want to hear his heat gun blowing.
I don't want to hear him.
Hear him blowing himself with his heat gun. Nice.
Yeah, baby. BQE. So yeah, man. I don't do a lot of micro builds because, truth be had, I think I kind of suck at it. Like, it's not my forte.
He's got sauce.
Yeah, I just never really got into it.
They're
man.
challenging.
Just be
I got to
honest.
give it up to the guys that are really into micro. That's all they like. Love. I give it up to them because, like, you got to use fucking tweezers on this shit. You know what I mean?
For sure. For sure.
You know
Aaron
what?
Ciotti, shout out to him, Atlanta dude. It's awesome. But man, he built a few kind of 2.5, 3-inch builds, let us fly. We did a Get FPV meetup when I was in Atlanta.
Right.
And man, this dude was ripping the shit out of this office park with that thing.
They're great.
And they were so much fun to fly, but
They're fucking great, man.
A 3-inch toothpick flies like a 5-inch. You'll note it. Every now and then you'll be like, oh yeah, this isn't a 5-inch. And it's about just the weight of it.
I mean,
like it'll fly like it, but then once you do something that requires like
a little throw
to throw it, it'll float a lot, but also because of it's such a low profile, like if you make it too tall, it'll kind of flip floppy around. The battery's also sideways too. It just makes it spin so much nicer too.
Sweet.
I need to.
I want to try. I need to build one so bad.
One of the things that I've been wanting to see in micro for a long time is just to finally get some race flight and some KISS builds that would work for whoops or toothpicks.
Right.
I think that's one of the biggest things holding them back, because there's so many people now getting into whoops or toothpicks, especially in some countries or other areas.
You don't have to register them, or it's a weight situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. I
It weighs
mean,
like 87 grams, and that's one
and
of the
if I
heavier
got
ones.
into it and there was if the toothpick was available, then I may not fly 5-inch quads at this point because
I would still fly big quads. There's a time and a place for everything.
Exactly. Like the toothpick is fun. The micros, 2.5 inch, 3-inch. Even
well,
the
that's why I
loops
never
are fun.
committed to any of them. I just end up buying more 5-inch stuff.
Bill says heavy 3 inches are really fun. That's what she said. But yeah, I mean, truth be out, I was just gonna say that like my Pixel, which is one of the first frames, small frames of Bill's that I flew, is like still one of my favorite frames. And it's like a 2.9 inch, and it's kind of heavy. It's fucking.
That's a 2.9. It's a 2.9 inch.
Yeah, it runs I run a 2.9 inch Rotor X prop on it.
Yeah, 3 inches too cool.
Yeah,
You gotta do
fucking
My
2.9.
Pixel 1S build.
Pixel.
Wow.
Yeah, Travis back then. It's so funny now. Now you mentioned.
Oh, sweet. That looks
So
badass.
back- Go ahead, Trav. Sorry.
Yeah, it's 1103 motors. I had 1S batteries. Like when Roops came out, I got Roops. I'm like, this thing's a little too small. So I started building bigger, and I had a bunch of 1S batteries. And Bill BQE came out with the Pixel. So I'm like, I'm going to build a 1S.
Remember
Like
that?
for a while, this is basically what's hot shit now. I was doing this like 2 years ago. Like,
Travis.
this thing was awesome. I had so much fun with this for a long, long time.
You're so on the polar opposite side of the spectrum now, because like he was building everything
I'm
with
like, well, yeah,
these,
check this out,
these salt and pepper fucking things or whatever the fuck they're called, the pepper fish or whatever the hell they were called, like the smallest 1S shit you could get. The motor's damn near bigger than the fucking quad now.
He's evolved.
It was crazy. He built a lot of small stuff back then.
That's
Redbeard's asking what type of motors do you run on the Ripsqueak? Any 12XX motor, 13XX motor,
11XX.
Yeah, 1106 is good. You could even get crazy on the
crazy.
3-inch and go like 1404. But yeah.
Does anyone recognize this frame? This is a little piece of history.
Oh man,
What is it?
I don't remember what it is.
some sort of air blade.
Can't remember.
Rotor X.
The
they made.
Rotor X. Is that the 5S one or whatever? It was like.
No, it's the Atom, the Rotor X.
right,
Atom.
right.
The OG.
Back in 2016. This
And
is
that
one
thing
of
was
the
awesome.
I didn't
big
recognize that.
micro quads that came out.
I was at that point. I was flying BQE SX3U actually, and that
Wow.
was one of my jams. And actually, I'll have to show you guys something else. For my favorite 3-inch, bar none, is the SX3U and SX3. He has a 3 as fuck now, which is a dope frame, but I still love my SX3U. It's one of my favorite quads. Period. But
Just go get it.
I'm grabbing a different one.
Here's a little frame I designed years back.
Oh, that's wild.
A little piece of history.
Nice, man. How did it fly?
Yeah, it flew, about as good as any of the other stuff did. It was just more of an experiment, but not
Yeah,
as
man.
good as any of the micro stuff
It's
now,
almost
because
a
all the stuff you
V-tail.
had to use the standard size everything just back in the day.
See that cable on there, quick flash?
Huh?
Yeah.
See that cable on there? She's
Yeah.
got emu flash. Right now.
Nice.
So Bill and I were fucking with this thing back in the day, back like when the Rotor X was coming out and stuff. And this is T-Motor gave us these fucking, I think they're like F20s to test back then. I don't even remember what the KV is on these.
Those are thick.
They're 3750s, and it's
That's
an
what she
F20
said.
T-Motor. But this entire thing is 3D printed, and this is the Beefy 3. And we started off with a Whoop camera, and ultimately, when these run cams came out, Bill redesigned the TPU top. I have one of the few that actually I think run or are running. I don't know, but this thing is my favorite fucking 3-inch, and you can run it full throttle nonstop. And it won't die. It won't die. Like, it's crazy. And I was getting like 8-minute flight times on this thing running full tilt. Like, it's bananas. One of these it's a really hard build though. This is actually the build that made me rethink doing micros because it was such a hard build. I was like, God, like, damn it, Bill, this is too hard to build.
That thing's awesome.
It's
man.
fucking rad, dude. It's like a bug.
I think the harder the quad is to build, the more rewarding it is, and the better.
Fuck that,
like-
bro.
Hey, the
If,
first time I put
if the
band
end
together-
result is good,
Why?
maybe,
Yeah,
but
dude. It's like
that rarely turned out that way for me.
fucking
I don't know. For me, the bando was such a pain to build, and once I built it, I'm like, oh,
Bando's
I don't
so
have it
easy.
now, as long as it works when I'm done.
Yeah.
Like that, the Y4 that I built was such a
oh man.
everything about it was such a pain in the ass.
Every second of that Y4 was
Including all
awesome.
your
I went-
mains.
I'm like, fuck that. And now I took it apart, and that's why I'm building this. I'm done messing with it. Just I couldn't get it to not crash.
Give
It
me the
fly like
best
18
builds, dude.
seconds at a time.
I fly an Alien 4-5 before that, like the Stingy V1. Like, give me that long, lots of build space.
My favorite build,
Top mount.
my 6-inch Bandolero is my jam. I mean, it's one of my favorite quads.
With the giant motors.
Yeah, I got those from Travis. Brother Hobby set up to Travis. Travis didn't like them. He gave them to me. So I'm like, yeah, fuck it. I'll run them. I'll try 6-inch on them. And they
The
fucking,
2810.
The
they're
2806.
2810.
Oh,
1500 kV. They're and dude, you look at it and everybody's like, dude, those are just ridiculous. But I tell you what, the quad flies amazing. Travis is like, your batteries are gonna melt. Unbelievably not. On 6-inch, they're fucking amazing. It's the best thing ever. I swear to God, dude.
I know the Avenger 2806 1300 works great on 7.
The fucking on 6-inch though, a 2810.
That's nuts, man.
It's fucking.
But maybe that's what you need.
100. It added 100 grams to my quad from the motors I had on there. I added a quad to the quad, damn near, bro.
That's more than a GoPro.
Fucking crazy. And I was like, this might not work well. And then
Not that Hero 8.
I was amazed. We were at the Bando a couple weeks back, and I beat the shit out of it. I knocked the GoPro off the quad. I ripped all the TPU.
Nice.
I fucked it all up. So I've got to do a rebuild on the 6 when I get back from the holidays. But the motors still work. Everything else works. It's just a little beat up.
Absolutely. So speaking of all your quads and all that, what are you running for batteries on these small ones, the big ones, the in-betweeners?
Oh, everything from 450 to 650 to 850 for the micros.
Really?
Its micros go with GNB.
Yeah, GMB. All my micro batteries are GMB.
Yeah.
I've heard good thing about their like 6S batteries.
Yeah,
I
those
don't
are
know
real good
many.
too.
Good
I've never-
value.
yeah, I don't see those.
Do they make like a 450, 550, like 3.4S?
Oh,
Sure.
GNB.
They make a 1300 6S and a 1000 6S that are both pretty good.
And what about
Yeah,
the
I just
small
heard they're a
ones?
good value.
What about the micro packs though? Like, what are the sizes like?
Here, I have like a bunch I'll bring out.
Yeah, they'll do like 2S, 450, 250. I don't know, just all your common.
Yeah.
I need
battery
I need like a
sizes for the
3S 450 or 550 for one of mine.
So here's a 650 3S.
The 6S 2600 milliamp or whatever. Airblade just started carrying it recently. It's a GMB battery. It's like for the macro.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's like super
You
light.
fly
Like,
2S.
when they gave us the spec for the battery, it was like we thought somebody weighed it wrong or something wasn't
yeah.
right because it's ridiculously light compared to the other
How much did it weigh?
similar.
2,600.
Let me see. I think it was lighter than my 3000 milliamp.
Word.
Well, it should
I
be.
think it was I think it was a 3300 or something. Hold on. Let me see.
Oh, it was a 3300 that was lighter than your 3000?
It was something ridiculous. It was a number that was like didn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like there's no way that battery could be that light. But
I need a good 2600 milliamp 6S pack for my macros.
all right, like my 3000 milliamp batteries.
Yeah.
These are Turnigy Nanotech Plus. These are extremely light for this size battery. It's a 3000 milliamp 6S. This is 482 grams or something like that, or 488.
Yeah.
The GNB 3,300 milliamp. So 300 more milliamps,
Yeah.
but it's 50 grams lighter than this.
Huh.
Wow.
430
How?
versus 480, and it's 300 milliamps more.
What do
Like,
they?
it didn't-
What do they cost?
What kind of flight time do you get out of that?
The
on your-
standard, it's about $70.
Gotcha.
With, it's, these batteries are 65. So
That's
I mean,
not
it's
bad,
not
then.
that much more, but it's lighter and more milliamps. It's like, and it's the battery's rated 80C. I think these are like 70C.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, but if I drop this on the floor hard enough, it'll drop a cell.
Jesus.
And I have like 13 of them on my bench over there that, like, it's getting to some kind of crash and the battery drops a cell. So Chad had made me like a bumper guard thing, but
Didn't know.
it's crazy.
It just
That's
well
a heavy-
weighs a lot.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's heavy, man. That impact is hard.
So on my macros right now, on two of them, on the BQE and the Nasty, I'm running 6S 2200s. But on the, I see a Tattoo 650, 850.
850.
So
3S.
I run Pyro Pack. Pyro Joan 2200s for me have been really reliable. I tried the
You've been abusing them
I'm
too.
bad on them too. Yeah, really bad. I was using the Xylo 2250s, and first pack I flew, it puffed slightly, and I was like, "Yo, what's up with that?" And I wasn't hard on the pack at all, and I was kind of like, and I was waiting on the Pyro Packs to come back in stock, and I bought a bunch of Pyro Packs, and I abused the shit out of them. I did kill one. Somehow I killed one this summer. But like I run them low. I run them down to like 19 volts. Actually, I run them down to 17 volts sometimes. Like in the cold, they run lower. I tend to run them a little lower. I'm bad on packs, but like when I first built this, I had so much fun with this quad. I was running it down to like 17 volts, and everybody's like, dude, are you gonna come in? Like, are you gonna come in, dude? I'm like, yeah, I probably should. The quad's is falling out of the sky. Like, when you give it throttle and it just goes, You're like,
what kind of flight time do you get on the 10-inch?
I mean, ripping, it's gonna be like a 5-inch. If you're, so that's what's important. Like, and Austin's very vocal about this Red 5. There's a theory that, for ripping, for freestyle based setups, there's a balance in power versus weight. You're going to hit a point of diminishing returns where you might if you're going to be running a 4,000 milliamp pack, then you should be flying long range. I don't see going much above 3,000, 3,300 on a 10-inch, giving you a whole lot more benefit because you're just carrying weight at that point. Whereas so like Red 5 on his 5-inch rigs, he runs like 1,100, I think, like 6.
Yeah, that's what I run.
Oh, 6S.
Yeah,
6S.
and then but I always ran 12. Like most of my 6S 5-inch quads, I ran a 1250, and on my 6-inch I was running 1550s and 1600s. And then when I jumped to 10-inch, I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna try this 2200 out. And I'm getting, dude, if it all depends on how you're flying, obviously. But I mean, ripping on this thing. I mean, you get like some of my videos are I'm amazed how long it is. Like I'm like, how is this like almost like 4 minutes long? Whatever. I'm
Like
ripping.
4 minutes of hard ripping.
Yeah.
That's like,
Travis's builds, he's typically running 3,000s, and we have very similar flight times. So that's really an interesting thing that we've been having nerd debates about it, but we're gonna do some more testing at some point and just kind of really see, because like he's running a 9-inch, slightly lower KV, heavier pack.
No. My 9-inch is 1115 kV.
Oh, it is. Oh, okay.
It's a 2812 motor. It's a smaller motor. It's slightly higher kV.
Right.
And 9-inch prop.
But he gets very similar flight times.
My T5s are done. The shot.
Well, ultimately, we get very similar flight times. He's running a bigger pack on a
Sandpaper's coming out.
Slightly different setups. But on your 990 T5 or your 900 kV T5s, you're getting similar flight times as well with a 3,000 pack.
Yeah.
And so, I think it's important, I love pyro packs in that regard because a lot of their packs don't have the steel. They're lightweight. You can get away with a little bit more and get that same kind of, efficiency, power versus weight type ratio in your pack. I feel like, running something too heavy on a 5-inch is like really, I think freestyling, I think you can get away with it a lot easier running a 1500 on a 5-inch because a lot of freestyles like a little more weight on their quad.
All my batteries are 1500.
But racers or guys that are kind of more of the speed freak freestyle, like they want a 1250, 1100.
But they also have to do 3 laps.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's like that middle ground for them.
So it's also they're fighting. They need a certain amount of time to get a power for a certain amount of time to get those 3 laps.
I mean, dude, guys were fucking overcharging their packs to get a little bit more juice.
They're maniacs.
Like they were charging his HV and shit.
Everything all the time.
Wow, like that's what I think it was Vanover nearly set fire to his fucking hotel room.
4.6 volts or something.
Yeah. No, it's like something crazy, like 4.75. It was like absolutely
just
They
asking
drain it to
trouble.
3.2. They drain it completely.
Yeah, and then immediately recharge it back at
Ridiculous.
20 volts or 20 amps.
They bounce back well, bro. Like, I'm really surprised, like that, how well some of my packs have bounced back, and then I've killed packs for like what?
Yeah, I think the higher milliamp batteries will bounce back a little better. It seems like because, dude, I drained my some of my 3000 milliamp batteries down to like 12 or 14 volts.
On a 6S.
And I'm like, oh, shit, this one's done. And like, but I'll get home and that should have recharged. It recovers to like 16, 17 volts, and then put it on charger for a little bit.
I feel like you get a 2-3 hour grace period with batteries like that.
When I
you
really
gotta jump on it quick.
When I know, like when I'm flying local, I carry a field pack or two, and I always have a charger with me in the field. And if I really hammer a pack, I let it cool off and get stable, and then I'll try to I'll try to storage charge it in the field if I can get away with it.
Yeah, where
For me,
it catches fire.
Yeah, if it catches fire,
always
if it
happens.
catches fire, you're outside, so it's all good. That's the time to do it, really, right?
For me, it's always like near the end of the pack. Like I'll be flying, I'm nearing like, okay, let me fly 10 more seconds and then I'm going to land. And then I'll hit something and then my FC is just going to start sending all these crazy commands. And then all of a sudden I'm at 3.2 volts. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Just like a little tap and your FC just goes crazy and drains your battery.
That's how you
So-
steel beams.
I've got a question more posed to Mad Chiller and Travis. But what's the key to success on these bigger macro builds? These 8-inch plus, these larger size builds. What are some of the keys to success with those?
Nothing outside of 5-inch, really. I mean, it's really not that much different than 5-inch. There's really not that many
Pads
things
are the same
out there.
size.
Well, I think the interesting thing is like outside of larger motors on macros. And
What about ESCs?
Well,
man?
you're
What
gonna-
are
you're
y'all
gonna-
running for ESCs?
Like I got the Hobby Wing.
We're
60
running the
amp
Hobby Wing
ESC.
60s,
Oh, word.
or you're running advanced power devices on the bigger
Yeah,
ones.
yeah.
Um,
You have to get an ESC that's 50 amps or more, and that's it.
Oh, word.
Yeah, I mean, again, though, it's like if you try to freestyle.
So you
with
don't have to have $120, 80 amp 12S.
What size? What
only if
size
you're
cap?
Jeez.
only if you're building, if you put polars on it at 400 kV and you want to run 12S. So that's actually part of the reason why I'm running 2200 milliamp 6S. So next season, I want to build. I'm going to build up a large beast 12S frame. It might still be in the 10, 11, 12 inch prop range, but I want to use my same 2200 packs. I'm just going to run them in series and fucking get 12S out of them. And so I'm just buying
Yeah.
Pyro 2200s and I just keep buying them. And then when I go to 12S, I'm just going to double them bitches up, and send them,
Yeah, I like your style, bud.
And I think that's important when you're thinking about your batteries in general. It's like, think about where you might want to go in the future. If you do want to do something crazy, you want to run some long range, you want to run batteries in parallel for more like a bank of batteries, you got to think about your weight and your kV. So if you build in that thought train, you can think about same with some of my other quads. Like I will try to share packs the best I can in some way, figure out a combination. But to really answer Kevin's question, my take as far as being successful getting started in macro is number one, a fucking pre-arm switch for me. Like, I couldn't imagine not having
Always.
on a big quad, on a big high powered quad.
Pussies.
Fucking
Come on, just risk losing a hand,
yeah,
not a big deal.
you're just gonna lose your face. I don't.
Yeah, for somebody who doesn't fly macros, when you see a macro for the first time,
Oh yeah,
it's very intimidating.
Yeah,
I bet.
And then when
it's
you-
just scary as
Yeah, you can understand, like, you could joke around, but when you see one flying around, you're like, oh yeah, that will take
fuck
a head
you
off.
up.
decapitate you.
I mean,
Like, you're definitely going to the hospital if something
yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
If we
No.
hit you with one of these, you're going to the hospital most likely. Like it's,
No,
it's
If you're
no,
not-
definitely.
I mean,
Nothing more.
it's insane with the
If they can get you there fast enough.
bro, like, so for me anyways, I would say, you know, a pre-arm switch is very important. I mean, a friend of mine had a quad take.
Safety first, kids.
A friend of mine had a macro takeoff recently. Still not sure why.
Test always.
You know, and he plugged it in.
Always.
He plugged it in. He armed it, and it fucking popped. But you know that you never know. And if you imagine, like, you know, I've seen people, they're leaning over, they're doing something to the quad, they bump their arm switch, and boom,
That's what happened to me.
you know, and it's
Real
like boom,
true-
the quad's
true
fucking
story.
lit up, dude. And so I mean, I think
Jam my hand all up, man.
I think safety first is a good thing. Otherwise, aside from that, you know,
Like, you keep the throttle on a spring, and then the arm switch, nothing ever happens. The throttle's not at the bottom.
unless your filtering's not set
Wow.
right, and then
What
it
a
takes off.
fucking beast. What a beast.
Quad,
Nice.
him and Red 5 are freaks. So I'm just gonna leave that there. But anyways, man,
My throttle.
getting capacitors, getting the right capacitance in your
How
larger
big are your
quad.
caps?
I'm running.
You
Been
just
that
one-
clean.
Typically,
one
I'm
big one
running.
at the ends?
Typically, I'm running a 50 volt, 1,000 microfarad. I would say the larger quads, these bigger powertrains, you really want to try to stay around 50 volt. But if you can get away with a lower microfarad rating, absolutely do so, because they definitely tend to be more responsive. But again, I'm now venturing down the line of
This is
adding.
a 35.
adding-
This giant, and yours is like the size of a freaking like.
Mine's like the
beer can.
bottom half of a shotgun shell. Yeah.
It's like one of those. It's like one of those airplane soda cans.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I mean, for me, Emu Flight's been a huge factor in my success with macro quads, and I would say that for me, I'm learning certain PID things like starting points. For me, I drop my eye gains way down. I'm running I start at like 10 to 15 on my eye gains. Big quads have tons of authority. They don't need a ton of eye gain, in my opinion, at least now from what I'm seeing. And if I have my eye too high, I see wobbles in windy conditions and weird things like that, even though I may have a good P to D ratio. I usually take my from default, I think like Emu Flight default is 45. I drop my P gains down to about 30, and I drop my D gains down a little bit. I think the default for Helio on Emu, is 20, and I drop them down to like 10 to 15. So there's some presets. We'll talk about that in a sec. But
Yeah. So
Hey, I hate to cut you guys off, man, but I got to bounce.
hey, no
for the
worries,
night.
Artie.
yeah, have a good one,
Everybody,
Artie.
thanks guys for coming out.
see
I'll
ya.
check y'all next time.
We're not going to run too
Have
much
fun.
longer. Yep. But love you, Artie.
Yeah,
Happy
so-
Merry Christmas.
Keep going.
Yeah, so I'm just kind of wondering because I know that both you and Travis both switched over to Emu Flight after they've been out for a little bit, and that's kind of been your go-to for macro quads. And I know you've been kind of promoting that to other macro quad users.
Yeah,
Like
Pat's running it as well. There's several guys jumping on. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's kind of been the reasoning behind that? Because I know that Travis was running Flight 1 before then, and you were running.
The main thing that started it, like when I got into X class, I built one up and it wouldn't. The thing would fly like shit. I didn't know what I had to do, and then eventually I figured out you have to lower your LPF settings. Like, because everything's
filtering's the
coming
other
to
thing,
for 5-inch, so it was like at 120 or something like that. But I learned I had to drop it to like 60 on my X class. So when I got into the 10-inch, I knew I had to lower it, and just finding the right LPF was the hardest thing. Like as soon as you get that, then you could tune your PIDs and everything would be fine. But you had to really nail the filter settings, and it took like repeated black box logging, going back and forth on the laptop. But with Emu Flight, I just set the W setting to like 248, and that was it. I don't do anything else with the filters now.
I dropped my LPFs on the iMuff down to about 80 to start. When I'm starting my Helio builds, both of them, I start around 80 on my LPFs, and then I black box and take a look and see if it looks like I'm over filtering or anything. And then I also set my W to about 240, and I usually leave my Qs stock until I need to really start looking at that. But once I get the quad flying good, then I start trying to loosen things up a bit. I'll try to raise my LPFs a little bit. I might start upping my Qs, things of that nature. But I would say, generally speaking, like, I think what my experience with Emu actually was on the 6-inch, and for me, the quad flew really good. It was on a Helio. It ran butterflight. It flew really good, but I would catch jello on my session footage, and I'm like, and the quad flies great, but I'm like, where's this jello coming from? Clean props, blah blah blah. So whatever, and so I'm like, one day I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna throw Emu on here, and I took it out. I loved it right out the gate, and when I reviewed my footage, all the jello was gone, and I'm on like stock tune, and like I'm just like, what the fuck? All I did was up my W to 64 because it was a 6-inch, and I sent it, and I was just like, this feels great. It flies fucking great. I have 0 prop wash. And I'm like, let me check my footage. And I looked at my footage and I'm like, fuck, it's totally fucking smooth. So I'm like, okay. And then as I started getting into the macros this last summer, I had the one, and everybody's like, Radix is the best on a big quad. And I'm like, okay, cool. Let me try Radix. And the Radix is an amazing piece of hardware, and I really hope we get them to support Emu and come through.
That'll be big.
I think that the Radix is an amazing fucking flight controller. Unfortunately, Betaflight did not like my 10-inch, and so I had to make a hard decision. I gave it a fucking 120% for a month and a half.
I witnessed a couple of test flights.
And I'm just like, dude, what is wrong? And so I said, fuck this. I had an F10 that I'd been sitting on, and I'm like, I chucked it on there, put the Radix away, and I threw Emu Flight on it. And I was, like I said, I was in a better place within one day, like on it. And the big thing that I've noticed that with a lot of people's quads is they'll have wobbles on an axis. They're flying Betaflight, they're running RPM filtering, they're doing everything they're supposed to be doing, and for whatever reason, they'll have some weird wobble somewhere they can't seem to get rid of. And a lot of times we're like, fuck it, throw Emu Flight on it and just tell me what happens. Do a diff, save your settings. You have nothing
definitely.
You have nothing to lose. Diff your stuff, flash it with Emu Flight, run it, let me know what size it is. I'll give you like a W setting. And send it, you know what I mean? And maybe I'll give you an LPF. But otherwise, do that and fucking send it on stock PIDs and tell me what happens. And board, I think that, the Helio definitely still has a bit of an advantage, but I think that looks fucking perfect.
Yeah, Deep Saw 1200's gone from Betaflight.
Yeah,
as well.
they killed that.
And I believe
I'm still running 16K on non-Helio stuff.
Yeah, you could run. I mean, I think Travis is running 16 or 32 on his revolts.
Yeah, 16 on a revolt.
And so, I mean, I wouldn't say that. I say that, if you really want to go for the high PID loops, I think the F10 is the best candidate flight controller out there right now. I personally, everything else, aside, I just love the board layout. I think the Helio board layout is very easy to build on. It's got VBAT pads in a good place. It's got your camera control, all that shit in good places.
It was well thought out.
It's a good platform to build from. It's build friendly, and so I have really good success with them in that regard. And
can you post a link of the board, or which one is it? The
Ready-made RC.
F10 Ready-made RC.
Strix F10
comes pre-flashed with Emu.
And it's
that's actually pretty sweet.
It's a great board, man. I mean, you got a lot of
not asterisks.
And I think the other thing that we were talking about last night, actually, in a chat yesterday, was Betaflight also dumped ProShot, right? They're not. Is that gone from 4.1 now? Do you know? Have we confirmed? Do you know, Kev?
I don't know. I know that they've had chats about the
to.
usefulness of it.
Well, so, we were talking about that last night because Travis.
That is a really nice layout, actually.
Travis just got ordered some of the advanced power devices, 80 amp. Good night, Dumpling.
Good night.
All right, y'all. I
And,
gotta
Night,
stop.
Dumpling,
Yeah.
man. Nice meeting
Have a
you.
good one.
And that's something we've been discussing because it's like we don't know where a advanced power devices is going to land if Betaflight stops supporting ProShot. I know we're trying to get it. We have it working with some flight controllers. I haven't had much luck personally on some of the Helios, but ProShot is working within EMU flight on many of the FCs that we tested. Unfortunately, it isn't working on Helio, which is a bummer for me. But there's absolutely no reason you cannot run D-Shot on those ESCs. So it's not like it's not the end of the world. And I think it's going to be interesting to see where they have to go if Betaflight, which is, the market, has the market share, obviously, in terms of firmware, where does that leave people that are using some of these protocols, like ProShot and things like that. And that's one thing I love about EMU Flight is because we've tried to keep things alive, like high PID loop support and other support that Betaflight has dropped.
Yeah,
Every-
I mean,
Tastes.
yeah, we just think about things a bit differently. So
And I think you're so open-minded, Kev,
Different
as a
views.
developer. If somebody comes to you with a neat idea, you're going to try it. And I think the reality is, and I get it, I can't fault the Betaflight devs for this by any means. They're busy, they're focused, they have a mission that they're on, they're focused on that mission. But if you came to them with an idea that you may not get heard, even, but I think with EMU, we're in a unique position where, fortunately, we're in a place where we could listen to these ideas and actually say, oh, that's a neat idea, let's try it. And if it doesn't work, cool. If that's one thing I admire about you, because if you see a neat idea, you're like, fuck it, let's try it. And then some of it's awesome, like NFE stuff, and it's neat. That's what I think that captures the spirit of what this hobby started as, is experimentation and thinking outside the box and trying new stuff. And that's
yeah, and that's why I really like the testing group that I've got, that I'm able to work with, is I can spit out these ideas that someone's helped give me, or I just had an idea that I finally just put into code, and they can just go out, test it, tell me if it's crap or not. And sometimes it just doesn't end up working. I end up just getting rid of it. But other times it ends up working pretty well.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a dope thing about it. And like I said, and it's not to say, and like I said, I don't want to speak out of turn. I mean, it's not to say the Betaflight devs wouldn't listen to us per se or anything like that. But I just find it's very unique in the EMU Flight camp, where if somebody comes up with a good idea, you're like, okay, yeah, let's check it out. And I just think you're really open-minded to that. And I think that's an amazing thing that is kind of lacking in other areas. You know what I'm saying? Like in terms of other firmwares, I guess,
Yeah.
Let's see. Other than that, go ahead.
My standoff is like completely sideways. I'm trying to figure out how it was on in the first place.
I hit a goalpost one time, metal goalpost, and bent the entire top half of my quad back about 45 degrees.
Dang.
How are you coming over there, Travis?
I got the ESC in.
Have we been slowing you down?
We're gonna have to. Travis is gonna.
No, I really work this slow.
I build
Like,
slow.
every little thing's measured perfect.
Yeah, I was only fixing. I didn't build shit. I just fixed.
Like I'll
I
spend.
just swapped flight controllers in here.
If it's a swap out, I'm pretty fast and efficient in it. But if I'm building, I'm super meticulous. I'll stretch a build out over a week easy. The reason being is like as I'm building and as I'm fitting, I tend to find things. I'll see something. I'm like, dude, this could fit better. If I printed this 3D printed part, I could make this fit better. And then I'll spend a half of a day working on the design, and then I'll print it, and then I'll test it. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm going to tweak it again. I go back to the drawing board and tweak it a little bit, and then I print it again. And it might take me a revision or two to get a print that I'm happy with for the part, and then I'll put the part in, and then I carry on. In the meantime, I'll try to do other things, obviously, but I tend to do a lot of custom 3D print work for every build I make, and that part tends to extend out my process. And especially, again, building these bigger quads, I just feel like if you fuck up, you're blowing something up or you're potentially getting hurt. Like it's just the high voltage trains are just gonna get you. I think being meticulous is not a bad thing. And like I was saying last night, though, like I had to change I got a bad motor from a company out of the box, and they replaced the motor and everything. That was cool. But I had a beautiful, perfect build that like I've been trying to fly, you know, and I'm like, fuck, I got to take this thing apart.
The new frame, right?
Yeah, that frame. I've been testing a prototype frame, and it's like amazing, and it flies really good, except they had a bad bearing. So like I could get the tune, I was getting the tune pretty close, but then I'd get this random judder, and I could hear the bearing squealing, and I'm like, what the So it took me a minute. That's the only problem with building meticulous and clean is like it. When you have to undo it, you have to be almost just as meticulous to take it apart and not screw it all up. But all right, well, cool guys. Well, it's 12. I think that we should wrap. I think we're at the limit. Does anybody have anything else they want to add?
No.
Enjoy the holidays.
We didn't play any videos. We just bullshitted the whole time, but or just talked the whole time. But I hope y'all found this interesting and learned something tonight. And we are, like I said, we're gonna come back after the holidays. We'll be hitting it hard. We'll have a bunch of fresh videos to play. We'll have some other guests. We'll have some guests returning. Hopefully, we'll get to see Travis's build when it's in completion.
This will be destroyed by then. But I'll have the APD one going.
Yeah, you'll be ahead of me because I'm not taking that with me to work on while I'm gone. I'll be back on January 3rd from the holidays, and then I'll work on it. Cool. I wanted to talk about VTX video antenna placement, crossfire and stuff, but we can do that another time. I think the only thing I would say about crossfire antennas is make sure you match your orientation. If you're flying horizontal, make sure both, if your quad's antenna's horizontal, make sure your crossfire is horizontal. If it's vertical,
Line them up.
Line them up, baby. Otherwise,
Cross the streams.
Otherwise, unless you have two, if you get a diversity, then run a crisscross. But otherwise, that's it. I think that's a wrap. Happy holidays, everybody, and Merry Christmas.
Yeah, enjoy
Happy
your
New Year's.
Christmas.
You guys,
Enjoy
Shout
time
out
with
to
the
everybody
family.
in the chat.
yeah, shout out to whoever's
608,
left.
Gearhead, Redbeard.
We love you
Paul.
guys. And yeah, like I said, we're gonna take the holidays off. Might drop a blurb out there or something, but otherwise, we'll see you guys first week in January. Merry Christmas.
Later.
Happy holidays.
Have a good one.
Sword of Omens, give me sight beyond sight.